We're taught to stick by our friends and family no matter what. But what if that loyalty is costing you your joy, your confidence, your sanity? In this video, we'll uncover 10 subtle but dangerous signs that it's time to cut ties, even if it hurts. Because sometimes holding on is what's breaking you. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship, perhaps with a friend, a partner, or even a family member, that slowly chips away at your peace, your confidence, and your very sense of self-worth? It begins subtly. A quiet doubt, a lingering guilt, the uneasy feeling that you're only appreciated when you're pleasing them, when you're quiet, compliant, or convenient. If that resonates with you, you're not alone. In today's video, we're going to explore 10 powerful signs that it might be time to step away, and sometimes to cut all ties, even when it's with someone you once trusted deeply. This isn't about bitterness or resentment. It's about self-respect. It's about healing. It's about finally choosing you. Ask yourself this: is there someone in your life who constantly leaves you feeling judged, manipulated, or small? Someone who, instead of building you up, subtly erodes your spirit. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength includes the courage to create distance, not out of cruelty, but out of love for your own peace. Because setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's a vital act of self-preservation. It's the first step in reclaiming your energy, your clarity, and your dignity. In this video, you'll learn how to recognize these emotional red flags, and more importantly, how to respond without guilt. I'll also share the most subtle, most dangerous sign that many people overlook, and how to finally free yourself from it forever. If you find value in this message, and I believe you will, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. You won't want to miss more content like this, created to strengthen your spirit and enrich your relationships. Now let's walk together down the path of truth and clarity and rediscover the power of peace that's always been yours. First, stay away from complainers. Have you ever felt like someone treats you less like a friend and more like an emotional landfill? A place where they constantly dump their frustrations, sadness, and complaints without ever asking how you are? Sure, everyone needs to vent. We all have days when we need a listening ear, a gentle voice, a moment of comfort. But there's a clear difference between seeking solace through shared empathy and using someone as a bottomless pit for emotional unloading. When it crosses that line, it becomes emotional exploitation, not connection. I remember a time in my life when my mother was critically ill. I was balancing a demanding job while also being her caregiver, exhausted emotionally, physically, and spiritually. In that fragile season, I needed support more than ever. But my former colleague, Sarah, whom I had considered a close friend, showed up daily, not to offer comfort, not to listen, but to complain. Her job, her boss, her husband, her minor inconveniences, repeated endlessly. Even when I gently tried to share my own burden, she quickly rerouted the conversation back to herself, as if my pain didn't register at all. It wasn't just draining, it felt dehumanizing. One day, just after my mother's major surgery, Sarah called again, not to ask how I was, but to chastise me for not responding to her texts fast enough. That was my turning point. I finally said, "Sarah, I can't keep doing this. I need support. 2, I need people in my life who care, not just complain." There was silence, and then distance. It was painful, but it was necessary. Here's the truth we often ignore. Not all sadness deserves a platform, especially if it's being weaponized as a way to dominate conversations and disregard the emotional bandwidth of others. Stoic wisdom reminds us that our peace is something we must guard diligently. You are not required to carry what isn't yours, and you're certainly not obligated to be someone's emotional crutch if they have no intention of standing on their own. If someone continually drains your energy, never reciprocates support, and always redirects the spotlight onto their own suffering, set boundaries. Be kind, but be firm. Learn to listen with your heart, not just your ears, and be brave enough to walk away when your own well-being is at stake. Because at the end of the day, protecting your emotional space is not selfish, it's self-respect. And in a world that isn't always kind, one of the greatest kindnesses you can offer is to be gentle with yourself. Second, avoid those who mistreat their parents. It reveals everything. The truest measure of a person's character isn't found in their charm at dinner parties or their generosity with friends. It's revealed in the quiet, unseen moments, especially in how they treat the very people who gave them life. A person's soul is never more exposed than when they interact with their parents, those who once held them through sleepless nights, who sacrificed in silence, who endured without asking for anything in return. That's where the truth lies. Once knew a man who seemed, on the surface, to have it all. He was charismatic, successful, admired by many, but every time his mother called, I watched the warmth drain from his face. He would answer with an irritated sigh, speak with clipped words, and often end the call abruptly as if she were an inconvenience. And in those small, revealing moments, everything changed for me. No amount of success or polish could cover the coldness he showed to the one who gave him everything. Because if a person can show such disregard to the hands that once held them, what hope is there that they will honor yours? Mistreating one's parents isn't just poor behavior, it's a deep moral failure. It speaks of a heart disconnected from gratitude and of a soul unwilling to recognize the very roots that made its growth possible. The Stoics taught that gratitude is not merely a polite gesture, it is the cornerstone of all virtue. And the most sacred expression of that gratitude begins with our parents. So when you see someone who disrespects, neglects, or treats their parents as burdens, take notice. That behavior is not an exception, it's a revelation. Don't be fooled by how they treat people in public. Their truest self lives in how they speak to those who once gave them everything. You don't need to confront them. You don't even need to condemn them. But protect your peace. Keep a wise distance, because how someone honors their parents today is how they will one day honor or abandon you. Third, avoid the friend who makes you feel distressed. Have you ever noticed that someone who once made your world brighter now only leaves you feeling emotionally heavy? It's not always because something dramatic happened. Sometimes the change is subtle, like the shifting tide. Two people drifting apart, not out of anger, but out of evolution. You didn't do anything wrong. They probably didn't either. Life simply moved you in different directions. I remember a colleague once opening up to me about his childhood best friend. The kind of friend who felt like a brother. Countless afternoons spent playing soccer, watching movies, dreaming big under the stars. But then adulthood arrived. One of them moved away, built a career, started a family. The other stayed in their hometown, content with a simpler pace of life. Years later, when they met again, something had changed. Their conversations, once filled with depth and laughter, now felt shallow, strained. There was an unspoken distance between them, a quiet discomfort. And despite every effort to preserve the bond, my colleague admitted that the more he tried, the more unnatural it felt. Eventually, he stopped forcing the connection, not out of resentment, but out of understanding. He realized that letting go wasn't betrayal. It was an act of respect, both for his friend and for himself. Relationships like music rely on rhythm. When two hearts no longer move in harmony, the dance becomes clumsy, awkward, and holding on too tightly to what once was can make the disconnect feel even more painful. Stoic philosophy reminds us that everything in life is temporary. People, seasons, emotions. That doesn't make it any easier, but it does help us see the wisdom in accepting change instead of resisting it. Letting go doesn't mean erasing someone from your story. It simply means allowing both of you to write the next chapters of your lives, separately and authentically. So if you find yourself leaving a conversation with more tension than peace, if seeing someone repeatedly drains you more than it lifts you, it may be time to step back, not to sever the past, but to honor the present, cherish the memories, hold gratitude for what they gave you, and then release the need to keep something alive that no longer fits who you are. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a relationship is to let it rest where it belonged, in a beautiful, unforced past. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk forward alone. Fourth, stay away from people who lack of empathy. On this winding road we call life, every one of us carries a burden, some visible, others hidden deep beneath the surface. Our struggles are uniquely ours, shaped by circumstances, emotions, and the quiet battles we fight alone. And yet, one of the most disheartening experiences is not the burden itself, but the moment we find the courage to share it, only to have it brushed aside. You open your heart. You speak honestly about what's weighing on your soul. But instead of empathy, you're met with comparison. Instead of comfort, you're told, "You think that's bad. Let me tell you what I'm going through." It's not just inconsiderate. It's a form of emotional neglect. I remember once sharing with a longtime friend how overwhelming it was to juggle a demanding job while caring for my aging parents. It was a moment of vulnerability, a hope for connection. But before I could finish my sentence, he redirected the conversation to his own work stress, completely ignoring what I had just revealed. That moment didn't just sting, it shifted something. I realized that respect in a relationship isn't measured by grand gestures or occasional kindness. It's shown in the quiet willingness to pause, to listen, and to value another person's reality, even if it's different from your own. Seneca once said, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." But when someone habitually minimizes your pain, fails to acknowledge your joys, or worse, revels in your hardships, they aren't offering kindness. They're chipping away at the trust that binds real relationships. Gratitude, empathy, and mutual care, these are not optional niceties. They are the bedrock of every meaningful connection. A simple "I hear you," a heartfelt thank you, or an honest "I'm sorry" can carry more weight than any eloquent speech. These aren't just words, they are signs of emotional maturity and of a heart that genuinely understands what it means to care. So take notice of those who constantly shift the spotlight back to themselves, the ones who can't celebrate your victories or hold space for your sorrow. Distance yourself from those who invalidate your experience in order to elevate their own, because when someone consistently dismisses your pain, it isn't just a lack of attentiveness, it's a lack of humanity. And when they quietly enjoy your struggles, it reveals a darkness in their soul that no amount of explanation can excuse. You don't need to justify your emotions to people who refuse to feel them with you. Instead, choose those who sit with your silence, who uplift you in your sadness, and who cheer for your growth with a genuine heart. These are the people worth holding close. These are the souls that help us feel human, whole and deeply loved. In a world that often rushes to speak, cherish the ones who pause to understand. Fifth, avoid promise breakers. Have you ever waited patiently for someone, hopeful, trusting only, to be met with silence or a last-minute excuse? Maybe they forgot, maybe they simply didn't care enough. And in that moment, a quiet truth cuts deeper than any loud argument. You were never a priority. A promise is not just a string of words, it's a sacred thread of trust, a silent bond that says, you matter. When someone breaks that promise, and, worse, forgets they ever made it, it doesn't just disappoint you. It makes you feel invisible, like an afterthought in someone else's busy life. I remember one afternoon, sitting alone at my favorite coffee shop, waiting for a friend who'd promised to meet me. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe traffic, maybe an emergency, but an hour passed. Then came the message, "Oh my God, I totally forgot we had plans today. So sorry." That wasn't the first time. And sadly, I knew it wouldn't be the last. She didn't mean to hurt me, but her carelessness did. Her inability to honor her word spoke volumes more than any apology ever could. When a relationship becomes more exhausting than uplifting, when your time, your feelings, and your presence are repeatedly treated as optional, it's time to pause and reflect. Respect is not something you should have to beg for. It should be the foundation of every meaningful connection. And when it's missing, no amount of patience can fill the void it leaves behind. Sometimes honoring yourself means walking away from people who don't walk toward you. It means saying no more to being someone's convenience. It's not bitterness, it's self-respect. Because every time you let go of someone who doesn't value you, you open the door for someone who truly will. You are not just worthy of love. You are worthy of consistency, of presence, and of people who follow through, people who show up, not just physically but emotionally, not just with words but with action. So the next time someone makes a promise, listen carefully, not just to what they say, but what they do next. Their actions will tell you everything you need to know, and if they fall short, don't be afraid to walk away, not in anger, but in grace. Because leaving behind inconsistency is often the first step toward a life full of peace, self-worth, and people who keep their word, not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to. Sixth, avoid people who recycle the same problems without seeking solutions. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in the same conversation over and over again, listening to someone vent about the same worries without ever moving toward a solution? At first, you feel compassion. You want to be there, you want to help, but slowly it starts to feel like you're trapped in an emotional loop where your support isn't appreciated, it's expected, where your empathy isn't nurturing growth, but enabling stagnation. This kind of emotional dynamic may not seem harmful at first glance, but over time, it drains you. It can turn a well-intentioned connection into a one-sided burden. There's a difference between someone who needs a listening ear and someone who uses your compassion as a way to avoid responsibility. I once had a colleague, someone I considered a friend, who constantly came to me about her work frustrations. Initially, I welcomed the conversations. I listened carefully, offered comfort, and even gave practical advice tailored to her specific challenges. But time and again she'd return, not with progress or reflection, but with the same complaints. She wasn't looking for change. She was looking for permission to stay the same. One day, after yet another draining exchange, I gently told her, "I care about you and I'm here to help, but we're stuck in a cycle. If you want things to change, it has to start with you." She didn't respond well. The distance between us grew, but deep down, I knew I had finally acted with integrity toward her and toward myself. You see, kindness isn't just about being available. True kindness holds others to their potential, not just their pain. If you're constantly absorbing someone's repeated worries without any effort toward change, you're not being a bad friend. For stepping back, you're being honest. Genuine relationships should lift both people. They should be a space where we share not just our burdens, but also our willingness to rise above them. When someone refuses to take even the smallest steps toward improvement, despite being offered understanding and support, it's not just frustrating, it's harmful to both of you. Listening is a gift, but listening without direction, without boundary, without growth, becomes an emotional echo chamber, and it slowly mutes your own peace. So be the kind of friend who speaks truth with love, who listens but also encourages movement, who offers support but doesn't drown in someone else's refusal to swim. And remember, kindness and clarity are not opposites, they are allies. Protect your energy, respect your time, and reserve your deepest empathy for those willing to grow, not just vent. Seventh, avoid people who don't spend money. Have you ever met someone whose very first words seem to revolve around how broke they are? At first, it's easy to empathize. After all, we've all had tough moments, but then something doesn't quite add up. These same individuals often lead fairly comfortable lives. They treat themselves to weekend getaways, dine out regularly, and proudly show off their latest gadgets or hobbies. Yet strangely, when it comes to contributing to something involving you, a shared meal, a birthday trip, or any group effort, they suddenly fall silent or offer an all-too-convenient excuse about money. This isn't about poverty, it's about priorities, and more importantly, about values. I once had a friend like this. Every time we planned something together, he'd bring up how tight money was. But then I'd see him posting pictures from fancy brunches or buying expensive gear. One day, when he backed out of a long-planned trip with the same tired excuse, it finally clicked. The issue wasn't his finances, it was the fact that he didn't value my presence enough to invest in the friendship. That realization stung, but it taught me something critical. Any relationship, whether it's friendship, family, or love, needs mutual effort and shared generosity. If you constantly find yourself giving your time, your energy, even your resources, while the other person just takes without giving back, then what you have isn't a relationship. It's an emotional transaction, and an unbalanced one at that. Good relationships thrive on fairness, mutual support, and respect. When someone continually sees you only as a source of convenience or benefit, they're not treating you as an equal. They're using you. Don't be afraid to acknowledge when this dynamic exists. Set clear boundaries, protect your energy, and know that it's okay, even necessary, to walk away from those who can't or won't meet you halfway. Your time, your presence, and your heart deserve to be shared with those who see your worth, not just when it's easy, but especially when it requires effort. True connection isn't measured in dollars, but when someone consistently uses money as a shield to avoid showing up for you, it may be time to reconsider the depth of that bond. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for mutual care. And that is the foundation of any relationship worth keeping. Eighth, avoid chronic arguers and side takers. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a relationship where every conversation, no matter how innocent, somehow spirals into a battle? A place where simple dialogue turns into drama, and even the smallest disagreements ignite a storm. This is what life becomes when you're entangled with someone who thrives on quarreling. Someone who doesn't just express opinions, but weaponizes them. These individuals don't resolve tension. They magnify it. They don't seek harmony. They seek allies. And when you're close to them, you often get dragged into their personal battlefield, forced to pick sides in conflicts you never signed up for. I remember a friend like this. On the surface, he was charismatic, intelligent, and bold. But beneath that confident exterior was a relentless need to prove himself right every time. During one gathering with mutual friends, we were casually discussing a group trip. A small disagreement came up, nothing major, just a difference in opinion. But he quickly turned it into a spectacle, demanding I support his view in front of everyone. In that moment, I saw our friendship for what it had become, a tug-of-war match in which peace and mutual respect had no place. That moment shifted something in me. I realized that people who frequently stir up conflict and pressure you to take sides aren't just exhausting, they're emotionally corrosive. They drain the peace from your life like a slow leak from a tire. You don't realize how deflated you feel until you've spent too long around them. Let's be clear. Constant arguing is not a sign of intelligence, depth, or strength. On the contrary, it often masks insecurity and a lack of emotional discipline. People who are truly wise understand that resolution is greater than victory. They listen more than they speak. They value clarity over chaos. They don't need to win every debate because they prioritize peace over ego. If you find yourself constantly walking on eggshells or preparing to defend yourself before speaking, pause. Reflect. Ask yourself, is this dynamic nourishing your spirit or draining it? Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's a survival skill. Cultivating calmness isn't just about maintaining external harmony, it's about preserving your internal equilibrium, your emotional clarity, your center. Life is too short and too sacred to be spent constantly defending yourself in someone else's personal war. You deserve relationships where understanding reigns, where disagreement doesn't mean disconnection, and where your presence isn't used as a pawn in someone else's power game. True connection brings peace, not pressure. And peace is one of life's most underrated treasures. Guard it fiercely. Ninth, avoid anyone who enforces your religious or political beliefs. None of us are created the same, and that's not a flaw. It's a gift. The real beauty of human connection isn't found in sameness, but in our ability to appreciate each other's differences, to find shared values amid diversity, and to grow from the exchange, not the enforcement, of ideas. Yet sadly, some people haven't learned this truth. There are those who constantly try to impose their beliefs, religious, political, or otherwise, onto others, not out of dialogue, but out of a desire to dominate the narrative. They don't engage with curiosity, they argue to convert, and instead of building connection, they slowly chip away at the foundation of mutual respect. I once had a friend I was very close to. Every time we talked, he would insist, subtly or not, that his way of life, his worldview, was the only valid one. At first, I tried to defend my beliefs with reason, hoping for healthy dialogue. But with each conversation, I left feeling drained, misunderstood, and increasingly distant. There was no middle ground, only a growing gap between us, and that's when I learned. When people argue only to assert their own righteousness, no one really wins. Arguments rooted in ego don't heal, they harm. Even if you win, the victory is hollow, often leaving behind wounded pride, broken trust, and lasting resentment. It's a price far greater than the cost of simply walking away. Wise people don't argue just to be right. They listen to understand. They recognize that the true strength of a relationship lies not in one person winning, but in both people growing. They know that stepping back doesn't mean surrender. It means choosing peace over pride. Letting go of the need to convince others doesn't mean you lack conviction. It means you've outgrown the need for validation through conflict. It means you value your inner peace more than the fleeting satisfaction of being right. If you're constantly finding yourself in conversations where your beliefs are being challenged, not with curiosity, but with coercion, pause. Ask yourself, is this person seeking connection or control? You have the right to your perspective, and so do they. But connection only thrives when it's built on mutual respect. Not pressure, not persuasion, and certainly not the relentless push to conform. So the next time you find yourself in one of these exhausting debates, remember this: your peace is more powerful than your opinion. Choose it. And if you've read this far, type peacefulness in the comments so I know you're someone who chooses growth over conflict. Let's keep learning, evolving, and building relationships grounded in respect, not rivalry. 10th, avoid the beggar of the past. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone constantly steers every topic back to their own past triumphs? No matter what's being discussed, they find a way to bring up the awards they once won, the glory, days they lived, or the recognition they used to receive. At first, it might seem admirable, maybe even inspiring, but over time, it begins to feel hollow, like a story they've told too many times because they have nothing new to say. What starts as curiosity soon turns into discomfort as you begin to see behind the curtain. These constant references to past accomplishments are often not a celebration of success, but a mask, a way to hide the emptiness they feel in their present life. I once knew a man like this. Every conversation, no matter how unrelated, would eventually circle back to a particular award he had won years ago. He would recall every detail, every accolade, and every compliment. But when I asked him about what he was doing now, his current passions, goals, or even day-to-day experiences, he would either avoid the question or change the subject entirely. Over time, it became painfully clear he wasn't living in the present, he was hiding in the past. The tragedy wasn't just his inability to move forward, it was the way his constant boasting slowly pushed people away. What he thought would make others admire him actually created distance. People stopped engaging, conversations lost their warmth, his desire for validation became a barrier to connection. Boasting doesn't build bridges, it builds walls. True confidence doesn't need applause. It doesn't live in the echo of past praise. It resides in quiet authenticity, in the courage to be present, to grow, and to find meaning in the now. When someone is truly fulfilled, they don't need to announce their worth. It radiates naturally through how they live today, not just what they once did. Humility is a magnet. It draws people in with its sincerity and grace, and those who carry themselves with quiet strength, who don't feel the need to constantly prove their value, are often the ones most deeply respected. As the old saying goes, silence is golden. But in this context, silence isn't about absence, it's about depth. The most deeply valued individuals often speak the least about themselves because they let their actions, their presence, and their kindness do the talking. So if you find yourself surrounded by someone who endlessly boasts, remember this: it's not your job to prop up someone who refuses to grow. Instead, choose relationships that thrive on authenticity, shared growth, and mutual respect, where the past is honored, but the present is celebrated. Let your life today be your loudest testimony, because true worth doesn't live in memories. It lives in who you are right now. Final thoughts. Your peace is worth protecting. Life is too short, and your soul too precious to be spent in the company of those who drain your energy, distort your self-worth, or dishonor your kindness. Whether it's a lifelong friend, a romantic partner, or even family, love should never come at the cost of your inner peace. Cutting ties doesn't mean you're cold or unforgiving. It means you've learned to value your time, your spirit, and the energy you bring into the world. It means you're no longer willing to carry the weight of one-sided relationships, of emotional manipulation, of constant disrespect disguised as care. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." And sometimes what you must do is let go, quietly, firmly, lovingly. Let go not out of hate, but out of respect for yourself. So if this video helped you see the truth more clearly, I invite you to honor that clarity, set the boundary, reclaim your space, and begin again with strength, with dignity, and with peace in your heart. Thank you for walking this path of self-respect with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. I choose peace, because that choice might just change your life.